It's the SG Podcast. We're here at the Podcasters. Say hello, podcasters, and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm El Stahura.
Hello, I'm Chad Jetner.
Hi, I'm Peter Lawrence.
And I'm Kyle Bacher. And today we're going to talk about all the weird hobbies that IT people are interested in.
Wait, before we do that, Kyle,
we
do that, let's talk about how many times you had to do that intro before you actually got it right.
It's the SGG Podcast.
That was great.
It wasn't that I got it right. It was that some dork was interrupting me every 5 seconds, so I had to keep doing it.
I'm sorry my joy and laughter was such an impediment to your podcast intro.
It was. There was no joy expressed, no laughter.
I feel like it's Friday. Does anyone else have that feeling?
Just a little bit, yep.
A little bit of Friday. A little bit of Friday coming out here.
Not really today.
So, Kyle, what's your hobby?
Man, I used to be computers, building computers,
Building computers, right? Not just computers.
Gaming. I've been a movie buff for like my whole life. And there was a time where I had pretty much seen everything. I worked at a Mr. Movies, so I just watched movies all day, all night. My room was lined with movie posters,
Nice.
wallpapered. Literally, you could not see. There was no bare spot on the wall.
No wall.
Nice.
Covered. And then computers became my job. Technology became my job. So the hobbies sort of went away, but guitar, music, that kind of thing. I used to do a lot of writing, but I've never shared it with anybody.
We call that journaling, but
No, I didn't. It was never about myself. Yeah.
historically inaccurate fiction.
Yeah. So not very good stuff. Yeah.
But still a
Nothing
thing.
I write is good the next day. Like I'm
Oh,
too
oh.
critical of myself. So then I don't want to share it with anybody.
I'm going to put that in your review.
My boss is calling me right now. So
How rude.
Kyle's going to mute. And Elle, what are your hobbies? Are any of the things behind you related to hobbies? That's been our question, like for the last
goodness,
I don't know,
yes.
20 years.
now we see your window blinds now. We're not seeing the shelving unit and all the stuff.
No.
Oh, I still see the.
I don't dare move my camera.
Yes.
Just on the off chance that it decides to stop working. But yeah, I think this might be this whole room is a good indication of the insanity. Because this room that I'm in was the formal dining room in the house, and we have no need for a formal dining room. So it has now been turned into a full studio craft room area.
Nice.
So on the other side of my camera here is a whole, wall with every kind of wrench and tool and multiple box cutters and
Wow.
So yeah, I would say probably half the stuff in here is my hobbies and half are my partner's. But yeah, I do sewing, I do drawing, I do drawing in pencil or charcoal. There's stuff in here to do stained glass.
Nice.
It'd be nice down the road to be able to get a 3D printer. We haven't crossed that line yet, but it's any day now.
You should. The sooner the better.
Yeah.
That's a good transition into your hobbies, Peter.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm definitely a 3D printer guy. I've printed stuff this week, so I try to keep it at least one thing printed a week in the low times, and more than that in the high times. And obviously woodcraft and things like that, but 3D printing is probably my key hobby right now, I would say.
Did you say obviously woodcraft? Like,
sorry.
We're just supposed to assume that you do
look
woodcraft?
at the doors behind him. I mean, I'm just going, that's an example of his work.
I didn't build the doors. I did stain them and poly them, but I did not build them. But yes, sure. We'll we'll take back the obviously and also throw in woodcraft and actually mostly cabinet construction and home renovation, because
Hmm.
when you buy a home and it's a fixer-upper, you are the fixer-upper.
That is your new hobby for sure.
Technically, yeah. Now, Chad, you do some, well, we've heard about your super grill or super smoker. What
Yeah,
other
well-
hobbies? Or
well,
tell us
I-
about smoking.
Yeah, that is the big thing right now for me, and so much so that it has kind of pushed all the other hobbies out, right? So, and it started right when COVID started. My wife broke her ankle and terribly sprained the other one, so she was immobile for months, and
Oh,
I had to kind of take over all of the cooking, which is not a skill set that I had 2 years ago, right? Like I was more of a, ramen and whatever kind of guy. But
Traditional college
I was
Yeah,
a
male
boiler.
diet.
ramen
I
and
could
whatever
boil.
is
Yeah.
the principal diet of most 18 to 21-year-olds.
yeah, right. So like it wasn't like, I mean, we weren't going to starve, but it got old quick. And so I just all of a sudden I got a tiny smoker. I had success with it, and I think for a lot of these skills, like having a little tiny bit of success early on is key to actually getting you
Always.
for any of these hobbies, right? Like just the tiniest bit of success right away helps like foster interest in something. And so now it's turned into a full-on obsession. So I've got what do I have out there? 5 grills now, 5 grills / smoke,
Oh
different
wow.
smokers, grills, ceramic, pellet, offset, electric. I've got a gas grill that I don't admit to anymore because that is not cool. But
No, that's take
was there.
that back. Take it
Yeah,
back.
it was
It's cool. It's a tool
Is
for
it propane?
certain things.
Yeah, well, no, not propane. It's yeah. Well, no, it is. It's a gas grill. It's propane. Yeah. So, but
So you can taste the food, not the fuel.
taste the meat, not the heat. Um, the but it has grown into it's kind of an obsession now. So much so that now I'm actually scaling it up, right? So the plan, hopefully, is to next year, sometime next spring, work on my menu, work on my sauces, work on everything over the winter that I can do indoors, and then next year actually turn it into a one of these side hustles that I hear you kids talking about these days. So am I saying that right? We are all of my generation, I think. So I'll make it a little weekend project, right? Where I just, go to a farmer's market and, sell smoked meats and that
Is
sort
there a scenario that would happen faster where I could like say drive up to your house and open up my passenger window and text you, and then a brisket would show up?
Oh,
So funny you ask, Kyle, because one of the guys that I follow that actually kind of inspired me to go this route, right? Like he's another software developer. He's got a YouTube channel, all that fun stuff. Um, the start of his business was exactly that, right? He would literally spend, Thursday night, he'd prepare for weekend service. So he'd start getting, pickled red onions and all of the sides ready on Thursday and cool them. And then Saturday night would just be spent smoking meats. And then Sunday, folks would show up, literally drive by his house, text him, and he'd bring out, their order, so it'd be, I don't know, family pack of ribs and beans and onions and the whole 9 yards.
I can't wait.
That, Kyle, that tiny dream of yours could come true at some point.
I want it now.
Well, and actually, you wanting it now is also useful because I do want to get this right. I don't want to go into this before I'm fully like versed in everything.
Or
practice, right?
it's been a fully smoked idea.
Yeah, so I've been doing it for anybody that wants it, right? Like I go buy ribs, I, do the rub, I smoke them, I bring them over, gifting food to everybody. With the only requirement being that I actually need honest feedback. You can't just tell me that it's good. I want to know what's wrong
Oh,
with it.
I won't coddle you at all. You're going to hear what I think.
Somehow
but
I
it
don't
will
know.
be awesome no matter what. So are any of your smokers hooked up to those Raspberry Pi devices?
Not directly, no, but I do have one smoker that is hooked up to the internet, and I suspect strongly that the controllers inside of it have some sort of Raspberry Pi element to it at its core, right? So um, I haven't gotten to the point where I actually want to rip it apart and look. I might do that this winter because I feel like the firmware could be better. I feel like I could rewrite this. And there are actually, you know how there's like home router custom builds out there, people writing their own home router software and all that stuff. I think there's another dude that has this project where he's rewriting the software for his smoker. And
I just don't ever want to hear you utter the phrase, I bricked my smoker.
you know, there are brick smokers though. So, or well, it means cement block smokers. Yeah, it's a real thing. So maybe I could one of these days do that. But yeah, I don't know. So for me, the hobby part of this got, you know, I don't want to say forced into it, but I did want to cook better food for my family, and kind of took a baby step, got a little bit of success, and then just went literally whole hog, pun intended.
Yeah.
And now here I am. The and now it's such an obsession to the point where like I'm constantly reading. Like I buy cookbooks. I read every good barbecue chef has like, you know, either they have their own channel on YouTube, or there's these guys that go from town to town and they have a channel and they interview these guys. So I've got a list of barbecue places that I want to visit myself and see how these guys do it and how I can, you know, how I can get to their level quicker, or, you know, put my spin on what they do. So
you're so deep into it. I had no idea that this was a 2-year obsession rather than a 15-year journey to get to where you're at right now.
well,
I
and
thought it was I got a smoker because I really wanted a smoker and I liked it, and then that's it. But this is like,
no, this is, I mean,
Yeah.
this is kind of what we're talking
this is
about.
what I'm
too,
talking
though.
about. These obsession / hobbies.
And
that IT
it's
folks
almost
get.
like and I don't want to be like dismissive and say it's specific to our industry and our career path, right? But given the art of software development and what we do have to have kind of this kind of curiosity about different things, or we should, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes when you get a little, when you age out of the curiosity phase of your career, it gets a little more tedious. We kind of talked about that before we started recording, but I think that curiosity just transfers for me to, it transferred to this, and hopefully, I mean, I think I'm going to stick with this, but it's also going to veer off into different aspects of it, right? Like I'm also going to buy a plasma cutter and some welding equipment because I don't like how some of these smokers are built. I can do it better, I think. And so I'm going to start my smoking career is going to veer into metalworking, and then that's going to veer into whatever. And I
Container
think
ship
that's,
construction.
yeah,
I think
could
would
be
the
right.
next. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you say it was? What kind of
Container ship construction.
I actually looked into that and it looks so much fun.
See? There you go.
Yes, I told my wife, I'm like, you know what? This would actually be kind of a cool thing to do instead of buying a traditional cabin. Just get some containers and throw them up there, and we watch the show. There's YouTube channels, the whole 9 yards. But yes, you're not wrong. That could be part of it. But this does kind of seem like folks in our career path kind of do this, right? Like when I started IT, I was an old school Linux Unix admin, right? And then I had to figure out another thing, and I had to figure out another thing, and another thing, and another thing. And it's the whole shaving the yak situation, right? Where you start with one thing, and all of a sudden now, I mean, right now I'm a solution architect, but all of the choose your own adventures that got me from, you know, making sure bind was up and running on our Linux box to and sendmail in the 90s to, you know, designing massive software projects for large corporations. Is the same type of curiosity that makes our hobbies veer off in all these different directions in kind of an obsessive way. All right.
Yeah.
I've talked a lot. I'm going to listen.
My entire career is I owe it to the game Diablo
Awesome.
because my computer needed to be upgraded to play it,
Ah,
and I brought it in to where I bought it, and because I had a sticker, don't tamper with this thing or it's going to void your warranty. And I put it on the counter, and the guy came up and took a razor blade and cut the sticker. It's like, yep. I go, did you just void my warranty? I got really mad. And, oh, no, it's fine. I'm like, okay, thank you. And I grabbed the system and went to a different store that had cheaper memory. And I brought it and I said, I need memory and I want you to show me how to put it in. And then I realized that, yeah, computers are like Legos. You just,
that's right.
yeah, it's not that difficult, and that it took off from there. Did you ever have a wood burning set
Yeah.
I have
when
done
you were
wood burning.
younger?
Yes.
Did anybody
I mean,
ever
is
actually
that just a
do any
fireplace?
wood burning?
You mean
Just
like the
randomly
little?
just thought of that.
It's a
Well, I was
soldering
thinking about
iron.
all the arts and crafts stuff that Elle does, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I remember wood burning sets. Yeah,
It's just a soldering iron that you write with, right?
yeah, you just burn wood.
All right.
So,
So
what's the? Have you done any stained glass, Elle?
Not yet. No, this was a recent acquisition. A family member of Dylan's, my partner, passed away and had just stained glass supplies that anybody would drool over. And it was just sort of like well, we could have these and learn how to do it. Or someone gets the fun of trying to figure out how to sell all these different sheets of glass and the cutters and just so that is on the list of things to start exploring later this year.
fun.
Excellent.
Yeah. I love acquiring the equipment. Just the sort of idiosyncratic tools that are specific to different hobbies. That's just
Yeah, I got
super fun.
into sculpting with clay for a while and wound up with all sorts of stuff and paints and things like that. And I did that, and I would make stuff for other people, and I
Nice.
never made anything I kept for myself. And
Do you-
then over the years, I learned about how they broke them or had stuck them in a box and stuff, and made me sad.
Do you have
My
any of
mom
your work?
just gave me one of them back.
Well, can we see it? Show us, Kyle.
I don't have it with me. I don't really know where it's at.
He's hidden
I
it.
think I broke it or put it in a box.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, did you do what? Okay.
Actually, I think it's in my truck, to believe it or not, but I'm not going to run and get it. I'll get it for next time, perhaps. But yeah. So
Why
Peter,
did you only make things for other people, Kyle? Like, was there a particular reason why you didn't make it for yourself? Because I wonder if that sort of, Chad talks about how he started smoking, starting to learn things, but is making and is planning to continue doing, like, basically doing his hobby and sharing that with other people. So I wonder if there's an overlap.
It's in my blood to like serve others. Like I've always had jobs where it's customer service or, it's always something where I'm helping other people, doing things for other people. I don't have a lot of motivation to do stuff for myself, but if it's for someone else, if I think, oh, they really like this, then I get really motivated and I'm up all night making something to give them. And because that brings me joy, like giving other people, like making other people happy. So it's just
Plus,
how I'm
it
wired.
saves you having to find storage for 200 different clay sculptures.
Then I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I got into Magic the Gathering for a little while, and I had the original set, like all the cards, mint condition, for a while. Sold that way too soon.
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah, I saw that episode of Antique Roadshow. Like, you missed out.
Oh, I did. Yeah. by tens of thousands of dollars. It's crazy. But yeah, it's weird. Collecting seems to be in the blood of IT folk. Comic book collecting, stamps, coins, things of that nature. I think the
there's
next thing.
something I think there's something to it about kind of just gathering the universe of possibilities that so like, okay, this is the scope of my hobby. Now I can play within this little sandbox I've built myself.
Yeah.
I I buy stuff that I might want to use someday. Like I see it and I go, that's kind of cool. Like I got a little keyboard synthesizer, like looper drum machine type thing.
Nice.
And it just sat there for like 8 months before I did anything with it. But so Peter, what do you make with your 3D printer?
What do I make? I make
More 3D
decorations.
printers.
No, I've not printed a 3D printer yet, but you can. I'm on my third 3D printer. So, but the first one, yeah, it's one of those progressions, right? Always start small, start with the simplest, then get more complicated and bigger and bigger. I'm not on a huge 3D printer thing yet, but I've made just little things like little cord holders that I wanted because I like neat cords on my recording equipment. Things to make my life easier all day, every day. Got a little phone holder here that just happened. These are just things that just happen to be on the table with me. It's not like I've gathered 3D printing coolness to show off. It's just like, well, oh, look, there's some 3D printed stuff. And as I look around, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of 3D printed stuff around here. So
you can't see it now, but my desk, my house, it's all made of 3D printing.
Can I ask you a 3D printing question, Peter? Do you come up with the plans? Do you design the models yourself, or do you download them online?
Yes, I do both. I have certainly taken advantage. Like I was looking to repair a ladder and print. There's these little flap things that help on an extension ladder. When you bring it down, it keeps it from locking in. Well, we'd broken those on my mother-in-law's extension ladder, and so I'm going to fix them. And I 3D printed new ones. And that was just a pattern that I found. I've done some keychains and some other things. I printed a little holder for glass cleaner things that were on my desk and looked like a stack of out of control paper. And now it's a very neatly stacked thing. So a lot of organizational things I've made myself. So yeah, and like a phone, I've got a phone dock in my car that I took the original example from online and then tweaked it to fit my phone so that now my phone can just plug into it and away we go. So
is there like a CAD program that came with it?
There is not a CAD program that came with it. There are free CAD programs online that I've used to modify things, cut them apart and put them back together with different dimensions and things like that. There are certainly other free for hobby maker CAD programs that are more serious.
Are there
like everything that you can go,
yeah,
you can go so big.
Have you looked into like 3D scanners? Like, do they have those?
They do have 3D scanners. They have scanner things that you can put your phone in and have it do 3D scans of smaller parts and things like that. I've been playing around with doing that because I need some parts for my furnace that I don't want to buy because they're just stupid little parts that should be cheap, but they're not. So
yeah,
I think some clothing manufacturer should like go around like different towns with a big 3D scanner, and you get in it and it scans you and basically gets all your sizes, your shoe sizes, all that stuff.
Gives you a model for things.
And then if there's already a model for you, that's like the template. So then someone else the next state over gets scanned and it says, "Oh, you're a Kyle." So then you can go online and type in, okay, my model is Kyle, and here's all the clothes that fit me.
Trying to buy some Kyle today.
I
Some
mean,
Kyle shirts.
there is a little bit of version of that in sewing. It's called a sloper. So it's just the idea that you have a generic bodice pattern or a generic pants pattern that then you can kind of customize from there, and you can use it to help define what types of alterations you might need to make in a new pattern.
And I think there is a literal Amazon service that does exactly what you're talking about, Kyle. Like, I think there's actually a thing where you can take a picture of yourself and it will figure out your dimensions for you. And then certain things you can buy on Amazon, like certain clothing items, you actually can see yourself. Yeah, you can see yourself in those clothes, right? Like, it actually says literally, show me me in, you know, whatever. I think last night I bought a Silver Surfer t-shirt. And I'm like, oh, I want to see what that looks like on me. Like, I wouldn't know, right? But it tells you anyway. So, but yeah, that service literally exists today, and it's kind of fun because, like, we talk about these things. Oh man, wouldn't it be neat if? And then, yeah, that actually that exists. I gotta turn off my thing before.
Crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy how much.
I had to turn off my Alexa before I talked about Alexa because I'm nuts, Peter. Yeah. What was my point? I had a point. I was going somewhere with this. I was walking down a road and I saw a squirrel.
So I have a question for you, Al.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about putting Raspberry Pis with some of these other things. I know with 3D printers, you can throw a Raspberry Pi on it, and with smokers, you can. How about with sewing or other of your crafting things? Are there technology enhancements that people are making for those?
There aren't ones that I've personally done, but it's absolutely within the realm of, like, that would be fun to explore in the near future. Because yeah, there are absolutely 3D printed patterns and like just fabrics that are being used, and that's really interesting to me. There's a little bit of when you kind of look at the progression of sewing machines, like just sewing machines throughout time, rather than having, you know, here's a wheel that you crank and you have to use the foot pedal and all it does is just go in a straight line. But now, you know, the you know, several $1,000 ones, like, here, let's make a buttonhole for you. You just shove the fabric in here and attach this little foot and it will just sew the buttonhole so that you don't have to worry about it. So it's certainly getting towards that kind of automation end. Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, when I think of other stuff that seems to be pretty common, you've got all the different types of gaming.
Yeah.
Like the board gaming, the role-playing games, video games.
VR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did VR once and it scared the heck out of me. It was a thing for the Jungle Book. And all of a sudden that big orangutan came out behind me. And I just about had a heart attack. And then I think I tripped over something in the living room, and and then it just sat there. The beer brewing seems to be popular. Winemaking, a lot of booze related ones. I've never met an IT person that has like a still and makes moonshine.
I looked into it.
It's illegal.
No, it's not, dude. You can absolutely do this. I looked into this prior to the barbecue stuff, prior to the smoking stuff, but it looks easier than you would think it is, right? And it's not necessarily illegal. You can make it for yourself. You can't sell it. But even that is becoming looser and looser, right? Like the amount of distilleries that have opened around the Midwest has skyrocketed.
Right.
But yes, that was almost my next obsession. I really wanted to make like gin, you know, just because you can, right?
Yeah. I think making bourbon would be cool. I would call my brand, I can't call this bourbon. Like, I can't believe it's not butter, because we're not in Kentucky. I toured the Maker's Mark. What is that? Distillery.
Yep.
And I saw the whole process from start to finish. And I thought, this would be kind of cool to do in your house in a bucket.
Small ingredients list and
Little
simple
tiny barrel.
operation.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Peter, we know about the 3D printing. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you've gotten into?
I mean, I've gotten into and out of brewing and computer building, and I don't know what else. That's probably about it. As far as things you can throw a Raspberry Pi at or obsess over.
That's the commonality of
That's right.
all IT hobbies is you got to have the ability to hook it up to a Raspberry Pi and
Exactly.
monitor it on the internet.
Right. And see it on the internet. Yeah. And you obsess with something until you get to the end state that you're happy with. And then you sort of say, oh, okay, well, time to move on. So I moved on.
So what's next? What's something you've been thinking about? For me, it's ham radio.
Mm.
I have not been thinking about ham radio.
Yeah.
CNC machine, that would be next.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one entices me.
Yeah.
Have you guys? So maybe I'm dating myself a little too much here, but when I was a youth, when I was 16, we still had CBs in our cars. Like that was the cool thing to do.
Yeah,
right?
I had one.
Okay, cool. And it was always ridiculous, right? Like we all had CBs, and they had like a whatever the radius was, and then you put the big ridiculous antenna on the trunk, right?
Yep.
And it was almost it was an antenna measuring contest. It turned into because
Right.
the guy with the biggest antenna, was kind of cool. And I just had a little Toyota Tercel with a massive CB antenna on the back.
Awesome.
And we didn't know how to do like a lot of things. So like my little cord from the antenna to the CB literally went out one of the back windows. Like you'd have to crack the window all the time.
Nice.
Yeah. Kind of I looked pretty professional. I don't know. I don't want to brag or nothing, but
I had a CB radio hooked up to a converter, AC/DC converter, in my bedroom out in Rockford growing up, and a big antenna that I mounted to our roof. And I would talk to my buddy Hammy, and he was in Minnetonka.
Nice.
And so he'd be out driving around, and like we'd chit chat and stuff. We stay in touch that way instead of being on the phone. It was cooler. And then have one in the car. Got to have one in the car. But I thought it'd be cool to like have like a shortwave or ham radio and be able to talk to people all over the world that are locked down right now. Like, how is it really where
like
you're
an
at?
Audio pen pal.
Yeah. I'm sure they probably have something software based that you can run.
Just gonna say this seems like you're talking about the internet.
Well, but what if the internet goes away?
There's a radio.
What if there's a blackout of some sort? It's like, yeah.
It's
but
just
I
an
do like
open channel where everybody talks at the same time.
I do like the idea of talking through the airwaves and not being dependent on the internet.
Just dependent on electricity and all the other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you get solar panels, generators. I got one of those little bikes with a generator on it, out of breath, but I'll get in shape.
I've actually
coming to you live.
So like with hobbies and stuff, do you guys ever find yourself being a little unreasonable? Because, and also, I mean, tying it back to what we do for our day-to-day job and, and then how that translates into how we obsess about hobbies. Do you guys ever find yourself like going down just like this idiotic path with a hobby, right? Because, this just seems like the next, like shaving a yak, right? Like this just seems like the next thing that you would do, right? Ham radio, right? Like, hey, I want to do ham radio really, really bad. And I want to get really, really into it when Teams exists, right? I mean, yes, there's the mystique about doing it, over the airwaves, and there's a different, tuning in and kind of the randomness of the whole thing and getting your call sign and all that fun stuff. But like, I also think that I'm trying to think of a good example of when I did this. Like, I just went down this ridiculous path with a hobby, and somebody's just like, like home automation and stuff.
You're not saying like the 5 smokers. That's not what you're talking about.
No, Peter, that is reasonable. All right, and I am offended, sir. However,
so is your metalworking hobby to build a smoker trailer, or is the smoker trailer going to come before the metal hobby?
it's the trailer second, metal first, right?
All right. It's got to learn the skills first, and then
You should
Exactly.
call your trailer the smoke show and have go from town to town.
I don't want to
pig
disappoint
roasts.
people.
Yeah. I tell you, I love a good pig roast.
But I've seen examples of this with people that do like home automation to a degree, but then also like setting up your servers in your house, and then kind of going a little bit too far with home backups and blah blah blah. And then somebody comes along and says, "Hey, Apple's got a plan for like $3 a month where you just like they literally get everything."
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
literally. Yeah, you reminded me. I literally did exactly what you're talking about, and set up a Dell Blade server in my basement to host games.
Yeah, that's just it. Like that's
server. And when there's all these other like things out there that you can just use.
But that's why it's a hobby. Like you're not doing the hobby because what you're creating is necessarily the best solution. It's because it's fun and you get to play.
Yeah,
that's the part that
I ran it for 6 months until I realized how much it was costing me, and that all my buddies and their buddies were playing it, and then I was hardly playing it, and I just shut it off one day.
You were maintaining the heck out of it, though, right?
Much to their chagrin. Yeah, me and another buddy of mine were like the admins and stuff.
40 hours a week on maintenance and
I was
30 minutes for games.
He was the game admin that was like world building and stuff.
That's what I'm getting at, though. Like, is it still a hobby if you don't enjoy it and you don't get any pleasure out of doing it? I mean, it might be neat to have the curiosity to set up, hey, I want to set up a rack in my basement and put a bunch of blades in there, and then get the networking all set up, and then have a network for this and a network for this. And hey, man, if you get joy out of that, if that sparks joy, I think, is that what Marie Kondo says? If that sparks joy, yeah, go nuts. However, if your hobby is turning into like an obsession, and maybe mine is, right? Like I probably don't need 5.
I mean, honestly, everything we've talked about, there's a company that's doing that for people right now, right?
Yeah.
There are places that are sewing. There are places that are making beer. There are places that are making smoked meats.
I can have brisket here within the hour. Like,
Can you have good brisket there in an hour?
Yeah.
That's a different question.
Unless I don't know what your standards are. So, I guess we could have some sort of if I drive up and pick up a brisket, I can do a comparison study.
That's right.
So we're going to need to make that happen pretty quickly.
But you're right. I think every hobby that I've done has gone to a certain extent where you're like, oh, okay, I've hit the end of my desire to learn. I don't need to keep track of all of Intel's and AMD's processors and all the minute changes that they're making in chip architecture to buy the proper motherboard and chip and cooler and everything else to put together the
liquid
cool
cooling, overclocking, all that. Yeah.
Or
no thanks.
I've spent 20 hours and X amount of money trying to replace this one part on a ladder when I could have replaced the ladder for 10 minutes or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
No, exactly.
I've done that. Making a big long stick to like change the channel on the TV instead of trying to find the remote.
If I glue all these straws together and fill them with foam, I can just sit here.
I have these chopsticks. I have this whole big box of them, and I have these rubber bands.
Yeah. Or do it my way. Create a child and then just wait 5 years, right? And then
I think like you're talking about like things you get into, and then just to be able to do them, to go, okay, now I know how to do that. Now it's like I heard you could make your own butter at home. I did that. It was pretty good. And that's the last time I did it. I'm like, okay, that's what that is. Yeah.
I think the food related ones are almost, I don't want to say they're different, but most of the stuff that you make at home is better than what you buy. I mean, unless you're going to like a great restaurant, Famous Dave's ribs are Famous Dave's ribs, right? They're
Right.
fine, right?
Yep.
But anything you do at home is almost always universally going to be better. However, like my home networking setup with my backup servers and blah, blah, blah is always, always, always going to be less convenient than iCloud or something.
Well, it could
like
be
that.
better,
Right.
but less convenient.
It could be better, but for me, convenience is better. I don't know.
For that thing, right? Because you don't
yeah.
want ribs right now. You want ribs in 3 hours. So you're willing to wait.
There you go. Yeah.
I think, yeah, the convenience factor comes into it a lot of times for a lot of things. But the hobby factor is there for most things, right? I'm definitely playing with the 3D printer because it's fun, not because I need things that are printed.
Yeah. I got into trying to make stuff at home that they sell, like trying to make big bowl kung pao chicken
Ooh,
at home that tastes
copycat
like
recipes
used
type?
to, copycat recipes.
Yeah.
I figured out orange Julius's and strawberry Julius's. I've got that dialed in.
Nice.
Can you send those to me, because I do not.
Do you like those?
I love myself an orange Julius for sure. Yeah.
Fresh squeezed orange juice. You can get at Kowalski's
Whoa,
Market.
whoa. Let's not get the podcast open for lawsuits.
Let's
here.
divulge corporate secrets.
Sharing the secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll send it to you offline. It'll be a little bit different, so I won't disrupt any patents or anything, copyrights or whatnot. I did get the big bowl kung pao chicken figured out.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's when I really learned how important it is not to overcook chicken.
Yeah, man. Get a thermometer. I did this when I started a couple years now. But like by the 9th month, I was like, all right, I got ribs down, I got brisket down, I got chicken down. What else can I put in the smoker? So this is where I went a little nuts, right? Like I was ordering alligator from this dude in Louisiana, right? Like, all right, now I can smoke an alligator. Now I can smoke boar meat. Like there's some dude that sells boar meat over the internet. I'm like, all right, now maybe I should just kind of dial it back and only do ribs.
There you go.
I got
Specialized.
into coffee roasting for a couple years, and I had a home roaster, and I would buy coffee beans
But there's a Raspberry Pi
regularly.
component to that.
No, it was like
Oh,
kinda like an
but
air.
somebody
Heard
could-
now.
You could
Yeah.
add it.
Yeah, it was an air roaster,
Mhm.
and roasting coffee, that smell is vastly different than making coffee. And so I had a elaborate ventilation system
Yeah.
consisting of fans, duct tape, and tinfoil
Nice.
that worked pretty well. I wasn't going to go buy an expensive like vent hood.
They
setup,
make them, right?
and then lately I've been thinking about doing that again, because you can get some really cool coffee.
And that's the nice thing about hobbies too, is, we've talked about how you can do things, you can, get really deep into something, and then maybe it's just you've gotten what you can out of it, and maybe you let it go and look at something else. But there's always that opportunity to go back to it in the future if you want, because it's just about, all right, now we're back at a period where roasting coffee by myself seems fun and exciting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get into stuff because other people got into it before you,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're passionate about it, and then you're like, wow, I've kind of have this mentor on hand that has failed his way to success. So now I can be like, okay, Peter, I want to start 3D printing, and he'll be like, well, let me tell you a few things.
Yeah, I'm going to skip you over the failure parts of my 3D printing path and get you right caught up. It's the cheat codes for 3D printing.
Mhm.
I do have a desire to do some prototyping of all my brother's painting inventions. My brother is a house painter, and he's got all of these little things he's created
Really?
to make it easier for him to do painting and paint around stuff. And like, this is the insert, and you hook this on your ladder when you're doing this, and this holds that. And it's all stuff he whipped up. It's really inventive. And it's like, okay, if I could like just 3D scan it, because there's no, it's always just shapes.
Right.
You just 3D scan it, and then you can make it, and then who knows if it's something that would be marketable, and you could turn that into a business or something. It's something to think about, though. So I thought about that. I don't, it wouldn't have to be a very big 3D printer. He's not making like extension ladders and stuff from scratch.
That'll be a step 2.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think this would be a good place to stop.
Sure.
It's as good as any.
That was the SCG podcast. Thanks for listening. If you want to reach out to us, drop us an email at thepodcasters@solutiondesign.com. Until next time, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.